Hi everybody, my name is LilyBit and I'm here with a new friend. This is VenusSX. She has a community in Altspace that meet regularly at worlds created exclusively for her events. Welcome Venus, and thank you for talking with me. What I'd like to know, and I think everybody else who's watching us would like to know, is who is Venus?
Well, I guess bottom line is I'm a pleasure advocate. And it means I actually support the concept that we can have what we want, in terms of connection, sex, and intimacy. So basically, I promote identifying what your pleasures are and what connects you to them, and what are your desires, and how can you go for them. I have a few different hats, LilyBit. I'm a relationship coach, a counselor, and an erotic artist. And now Venus is here, born in the digital metaverse, like a product of creative union in this space where everything is beautiful and everything is possible.
Excellent. Okay, so touching on that subject, I'd like to know, how did you get into VR?
I actually had a friend who just turned up one day and said, I want you to have a look at this, and lent me her headset. And we jumped into Altspace VR as my first sort of experience. And I fell in love with it like straight away.
Okay, and can you tell us a little bit more of the sort of things you do? I mean, you touch a little bit on that, but can you elaborate a little further?
I always like starting with my mission, like why I'm here, because that is what motivates me to continue developing in this space, which is still quite new, really. My events are about teaching you how to be like erotic and more open and natural, but also how to state your boundaries and how to say yes, no, and maybe. And I know that in VRChat there's this whole ERP and erotic role play, but I get the sense that that's really just a nice acronym for physical relations, whereas when I speak about role play, it's a little bit more like stepping into a psychological role or into an archetype. For example, I am the goddess, goddess Venus, and you as my submissive or as my play partner. If you were a male, maybe I could make you my sex slave or my temple slave. And you can step into that role, and then we interact from that place. And it's less physical and more mental.
I see. So the way I understand it is more about looking deep inside us of who we are and try to kind of let that come out in a safe environment where we won't be judged. Is that what you're talking about?
Definitely. That's the space that I provide. It's safe and it's consensual. And what I mean by consensual is that everyone uses their consent skills. So if you don't know what that is, then you come to my workshops and learn what I mean by that. And when we know we're in that space, I then encourage people through workshops or coaching to open up to more aspects of themselves. Often we have fantasies or ideas of ourselves or stories that we've pushed down, we've repressed, because, society says it's not right, or your mother told you to not do that. Yeah, the repression of our culture is actually really quite strong within our sensuality and our sexuality. So a lot of people have shame around it. So my journey has been dealing with my own shame, and my own guilt around being sexual. And so now I bring that to this space of offering a way for people to learn how to be more natural. But it's not just, like I said, it's not just about physical, because it's easy enough to get an avatar on and turn things on. And this is more the steps before that. How do you get to the physical place? What happens before that?
It's like an emotional practice in a way, in a safe environment, because by having this avatar, it kind of makes you feel kind of protected. You're like in a costume in a way, like the masquerade balls of, that they do, where you wear a mask.
Exactly.
And nobody knows who you are, and that way it gives you the freedom to kind of be who you really want to be and experiment with your own personality traits. Sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so passionate about doing events and like connection workshops in VR. For touching on what you're saying, LilyBit, is like we can experiment with breaking cultural boundaries. We can see ourselves totally differently. And we even have the ability to learn through simulations. Yeah, so through simulated experiences, so we can become more confident. And I've got a query, like how much quicker do you think we can learn in VR using immersive education?
I personally believe that it would speed things up because it does make you feel safer. The fact that you're able to be anonymous for one thing, so that way you are able to kind of let go of your restraints because you know that there won't be any repercussions. So that kind of gives you a little bit of freedom, but as well, there could be the danger that you might want to take it too far. So yeah, it would be good to have someone that can guide you and say, this is safe, this is healthy, this one, maybe don't go that far, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, in a lot of my workshops, we actually just learn that, how to state your boundaries. And that goes both ways, like how to say yes, like really enthusiastically when you want to do something with someone, and also how to say, no, thank you very much, but I'm not interested. And that being okay. You know, I think often in our culture, we're scared to ask for what we want because I might get a no, or I will get judged and they won't like me anymore. And that is something common, I find, with couples, but that they don't share because there's this element of fear. And so I help people in that way by coaching you into a space where you can feel more confident to ask for what you want, but also how to say no. No, thank you.
It's very
and that's
important.
really important.
And I would say, most people would say, oh, it's because, women are brought up to, not learning how to say no. Yeah, that is the case. But I have experienced also men also are put in a position that they don't know how to say no. They're expected to be able they're supposed to say yes no matter what. And they end up doing things and putting themselves in situations where they really don't want to be in. But, they're a man. They're supposed to, agree to whatever the woman says, or they should feel lucky that a woman wants to be and play with them. So I think it's not so much a gender thing, just men and women react differently, but we both have to learn as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we're dealing with a lot of gender stereotypes as well. And it's a lot of that's been broken down now, but the foundations are still there. So part of my mission is that we can learn to be more balanced with our masculine and feminine energy, like within us, as well as in the world. Like, what I mean by that is feminine energy is more about being creative and being receptive to what is here, rather than trying to race forward to the end goal. And then masculine energy is more the active, conceptive energy. Let's create, let's be active and let's get to that goal and have a successful ending. And both of them are important, essential energies.
And they do.
But we live in a culture that's been too patriarchal. Like, our whole society has been too focused on the masculine being success and the feminine being something that is feared and pushed down. And so I'm here as VenusSX also to help balance that. It's one of my missions, is all of us coming together with male-female balance and therefore creating so much more beauty. Because we're not fighting and having this gender war. Actually, we come together and create union. And we need to learn a few things first. We need to, yin and yang, exactly.
You need to balance each other. Because too much of a good thing can be bad. Too much of a bad thing is definitely bad. But yeah, you need to balance it. How do you know when you're having fun if you've never been bored? You need to experience the bad to understand the good as well. It's a balance. Okay. So now I'd like you to tell me, what sort of people come to you? What sort of people that would benefit from this? Or do you have like a criteria or like a guidelines? Is there certain people that you might not want to, have involved in some of your seminars? Or is it for everybody?
Well, no, anyone really who is over 18. and who is an open-minded, curious explorer. They generally love my events because they range from dance parties to workshops, to nude art exhibitions, to self-awareness games, and like erotic meditations. And so anyone is welcome, so long as you're able to act as a mature adult, and so long as you have an open-mindedness towards learning, to unlearning first, actually, unlearning what you actually don't need and what is not even yours, that you were taught by your parents or your teachers or your pastors, and then relearning, like what is yours to take responsibility for, and how can you just be more natural and do what you want. So if you're a bit shy, that's okay too. You can still join my events, and sometimes we actually have a special event for you. You can just be the voyeur the whole time, as we have the exhibitionists do a VR role play.
Oh, that's a very, very good point, because there is people like me. I'm a bit of an introvert, so I'm very bad at big crowds. I'm very much a sort of small group type of person. So being able to kind of be there, but without expected to be a participant straight away, that is, a little bit of a freedom for me makes me feel safe. That's a good point.
Okay. Cool. And that being said, though, some of my workshops are designed to be interactive, because that's what I love about VR, that we have this ability to create this virtual space and it be immersed in a beautiful world that makes us feel something, and then to interact with other people in a real way. And so communication and talking is generally a part of that. Sometimes we explore touch and we can dive into more phantom touch explorations, but for the most part, it's just communicating. And then the coaching, I have a few different levels of that. I have free events where you can just come and listen, and we talk about a certain topic, like a relationship topic. The next level is like group coaching, and that's maybe what some people would prefer. It's a more closed circle of, let's say, 8 to maximum 10 people, and it's always the same regular people. So that's like on a paid subscription, you can have access to a group coaching space where we dive deeper into the topics that I have as my 5 core pillars. And then the third level is one-on-one coaching. So where we can, either sit here like this, talk counseling, or we could maybe even play some games together so that you have that simulated experience. Or we can even move into role play if that's something that's going to be therapeutic for you.
Okay, so let me just touch back onto that point. So your events here in VRChat, are those free, or are they do they require a fee, an entry fee?
I'm going to have a few different options for people. So I think initially we'll be hosting free events just to join this community here and find the people who are interested in VRChat to jump into a different type of culture, where it's going to be less about the avatars and the mirrors and more about actually connecting with yourself and dropping into your body, or learning how to do an erotic breath meditation that you can share with your lover or do on your own. So we will touch on these different pillars in the free events, but then really to dive deeper into them, I need to create a private space. And so in doing that, the private space, it requires a subscription. And when you get your membership, you have access to the more private events that contain restricted content or dive deeper into the intimacy so that we know who is here in this space. So a filtered club, you could say.
Oh, okay. So let me just rephrase that for our viewers. So if I understand it correctly, if we put it in VRChat terms, so your events will be like a public world where anybody can kind of come in and sort of get the benefit of it in a sort of basic entry level. But then if they wanted to develop it even further or look into it a little bit more, they can go into the VIP room where it's by subscription only, kind of.
Yep. And there will be more than just a space. So we'll also provide accessories and games and sort of interactive elements, which is what I'm excited about, because VRChat allows anything you can imagine, really. So that's an exciting new chapter. It's like interactivity in here, and how could that be used not just for entertainment only, but for self-development, or for, let's say we're a couple and we can jump into one of Venus's worlds and play these games or these activities, and through doing that we discover something new about each other, or by the end we have a fantasy idea that we're going to go and explore in real life.
Oh,
that's
so
some of the ideas I have.
See it as a practice run in a safe environment, and once you master your fantasy as a couple, you can go into the real world and then do the actual show, the real show. It won't be a rehearsal anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Practice run, and then the actual show.
Okay.
And then there's also the group that I have. So I have a public group in VRChat, which you can join. 18 plus and open to learning is pretty much the only criteria I have. And that will mean we can have group only instances. And I'm yet to release really what's going to be launched in VRChat. So just stay tuned on her channel and join my Discord, which I'm sure we'll be able to give you at the end of the interview.
I'll put it on the YouTube link underneath. So if anybody wants to find out more about it, I'm going to put it underneath, and then you can just click on it, and it'll take you to her website and her Discord, all her information. That if you find this interesting, which I do, I think is going to do very well. This is a good thing for VRChat. I think it's going to bring a different level of adult interaction. It is not about ERP or DPS, all those sort of terms. It's more about the emotional relationship between humans. Because it's not just about male and female, if your sexuality, it's a little bit more, outside what the society considers normal.
You could say.
That's the word.
Yeah, fluid is a nice way of putting it. I like to create a space. Yeah, if you're more fluid, you don't want to be boxed into necessarily some type of gender, or maybe you don't even want to be boxed into being some type of person who likes certain things. You can break out of that and go, well, maybe I'm curious to... Maybe I might like this over here if I'm just curious enough and confident enough to stay in this space. It can be scary for some people, of course. We're exploring more of our intimacy, our vulnerability, but that's also really healthy for us as well.
Definitely, in a nice environment without being judged.
My one-on-one coaching. Yeah, my one-on-one coaching also brings that possibility of, releasing ideas that you have about yourself, or even looking at your shadow aspects. That's a whole class. But your shadow aspects are the parts of yourself that you don't really want to look at. That we're a little bit ashamed of those parts of ourselves. And so we just go, oh, no, we put them in the dark over here. No, it doesn't exist. But actually, they do exist. And they're part of you. And the journey is to be brave enough to get the flashlight and shine it on these dark areas and bring them into the light, because then they're not dark anymore. They're just a part of you. So it's like about embracing more of you, if that makes sense.
Whole package. Deal with the whole package kind of thing, instead of just the pretty pictures or the pretty side of one that society accepts. You need to also look into the dark and, like you say, shine the torch, see what it is about, so you can understand it. Because if you don't understand something, you fear it. If you understand it, at least you know how to handle it.
Exactly. And fear is really just an indicator that it's the unknown, that you don't know it. And the easiest way to combat fear is to make the unknown known. So just learn about it, research, ask somebody, go to a therapist, talk about it. And then the fear will disappear immediately.
Yeah, because it's
good point.
It's not a unknown anymore. And then you can just be brave enough to handle it, whatever it is. One of the things as humans, as any other animal in this planet, we experience, and sometimes it can be a little erratic or difficult to kind of understand, is jealousy. What do you think of jealousy?
I think jealousy is something that we all experience in different ways. Perhaps for some people it's stronger or more, affects their life more. And maybe for some people, I've heard say, I don't ever feel jealousy. So I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself and what I've learned on my journey. I think learning how to deal with jealousy is an essential skill. It can come up in monogamous relationships, it can come up in non-monogamous relationships, and even just sometimes with your friends or your colleagues. And what I've learned about jealousy is largely, I'd like to quote from Dossie Easton. She's an amazing woman and a co-author of the book, The Ethical Slut. And that book actually really opened my mind to different ways to approach non-monogamy. And I now specialize in coaching people in sort of polyamory or what we call non-monogamy. Oh. Jealousy really is an umbrella. It's not an emotion, really. Jealousy, I would say, is more like an umbrella, and underneath that umbrella hangs all these different emotions or feelings. For example, envy or insecurity. For some people, it could be competition is what's, gets their jealousy going. For some people, it could be, for mostly, it's low self-esteem or like a poor self-concept. So that's what I've learned. I have learned that when I get jealous or I experience this feeling of jealousy, which makes me feel like shit and generally ruins my relationships, when I come back to looking at it, it's because I've got a bad concept of myself, because I don't think I'm good enough, or I think that they're better, or I don't see myself as deserving to have this beautiful love. And so I start sabotaging it and ruining it. So there's, I could say maybe 9 or 10 different things you could hang under the umbrella of jealousy. So again, it's a whole class. It's actually a whole course, an online course that I will be providing to support people in how to actually do some actual exercises of how to combat jealousy. Because I think it's a place where we learn about ourselves, actually.
Oh,
if we can face it.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think you got me thinking about that. It's a little bit like anger. Anger can also be kind of a multitude of little separate categories or levels, if you like. But everybody experiences it. So when someone says, "Oh, I'm not a jealous person," they're not really understanding what jealousy really means, because it's something that we all feel. Animals feel it too. It's about learning to handle it, to put it into perspective, to deal with it and understand where is it coming from. Just like anger, it could be that you're tired, it could be that somebody makes you upset. I think it could be that sort of thing that where people can't say, they shouldn't say, "Oh, I'm not a jealous person," because that's not healthy. That means you're not a human. You're not or
some people say, "Oh, you shouldn't be jealous." I also hear the opposite of that, where people say, "Oh, you shouldn't be jealous. You should be okay with your partner having this beautiful experience." And it's like, well, I'm not though. And it's good to admit that, and then not project it onto the other person, but go, okay, well, what does that say about myself? Okay, well, perhaps I'm feeling like I don't have enough time with my partner at the moment. That could be why I'm feeling jealous. And so one of the remedies could be, "Hey, babe, I really want to sit down and have a chat with you because I'd like to talk about our agreement of how much time we get to spend together, because I'm really missing having quality time with you." That could be one approach. That's just an example of, like I said, there's many different ways. And the first thing is to learn what triggers me, and so that I sort of know how to see the warning light. I see jealousy as like a warning light on the day. You drive in your car and everything's going good. It's like, yeah, cool, man, fucking rocking. And then this warning light pops up on the dashboard. You could say that if you take heed of that and don't ignore and go, "Oh, no, who cares, whatever, I'll just keep going," and then you end up running out of fuel or the radiator overheats, then you're fucked. And if we ignore the warning light, if we see it as for what it is, I need to look at myself here, or I need to have a conversation, really honest one, or I need to do something good for myself so I feel good again. Mm-hmm. And
so it's about having a conversation.
Decide to not. Yeah.
So having a conversation with yourself as well as with the person that is also involved in the feeling of jealousy. Communication. And avoiding misunderstandings, because that's something that us humans, we tend to just sort of be plagued with. misunderstandings. They can be so dangerous if they're not handled properly. I see your point.
Yes, LilyBit. And that's exactly why learning communication, it sounds really basic, but starting at communication skills is the key. Because if I can communicate more clearly with you and be more explicit about what I want and what I don't want or what I need, then, you know, if you work with that and you've got someone with you who wants to work with it, theoretically you will get more of what you need and more of what you want because you've been quite explicit in asking. Yeah. And I think some people jump over the communication piece and just jump into having sex and they don't really know what's going on, you know? But I advocate having an agreement and it sometimes is really scary to talk about this stuff, but to have an agreement that's like, okay, this is how we're going to play. Yeah, that's adult.
You know what?
That's mature, emotional.
The way I give you a little anecdote or something that I experienced. There were I came across these two children. They were like 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and they were playing. But one spoke Spanish and the other one spoke English. So they didn't understand each other's languages. They came from different backgrounds. Well, one of those, there was a little play suitcase. Okay, and they were playing, and they played for hours. I was watching, observing them. One of them, the suitcase was because they were going on a journey, they were traveling, they were getting on the airplane, and they were on the airport and all that, and waiting for the airline, you know, to open the gate so they can get on the plane. That was his narrative with that little suitcase. And the little girl, the suitcase was actually a school bag, and they were getting on the bus because they were going to school, and they were sitting there in front of the teacher and they were having a hell of a time. It was wonderful, but they were completely different narratives. And I think that's so much like humans. We all come from different backgrounds. Even if we speak in the same language, our upbringing is completely different, and the way we see things are completely different. You might think, oh yeah, this person is jealous because of this and that, but it might not be. They might be jealous for completely different reasons you don't even know about. That's why communication is so important.
Great. That's an excellent point. Really cool story. Also makes me think about how when we're children, we have this imagination that is unlimited. And the beauty of that, you know, we can see the fairies or we can imagine that there is different things in different dimensions. But then our schooling often and our upbringing and our parents' pressure sculpts us and molds us into, no, you don't see those dimensions. Don't imagine. No, that's not there. And so we almost repress our imagination. But as children, we were so free. Yeah. And so one thing that I really love is we can actually get back to, well, not go back to so much, but open up those doorways within our mind, which they're there, but we've just closed the door to them. That's the unlearning of finding the door again and then opening the door, and imagine that you can have the erotic fantasy you've always wanted to have, for example, or imagine that you can really do what you came here to do in this life. Like, see yourself actually living your dream, because if you can't see it, it's difficult to sort of get motivated towards it. It's
like taking you to the dining table with a whole beautiful buffet or like one of those buffet restaurants, blindfolded. And they say, there you go, pick your food. And you're like, well, I don't know what I want because I can't see. It's kind of like a lot of humans, we are like that. We don't know what we want because we can't even see it, because we haven't been allowed. Our upbringing and society puts these blinding things on us and binds us behind, with tie our hands. So we can't be who we really want to be because we don't even know who we are sometimes. We forget who we really are.
Exactly.
Sounds very good. That is an excellent way of helping people. Because that's another thing I wanted to ask you. Why do you do what you do?
Why I do what I do? I've just arrived here, really, in this space through my own journey. Why? Because I have so much joy when I see people interacting and having like the best sex that they can have. I hope I can talk about that on your channel.
Of course you can. Yes, you can.
That's sort of like, it's like something that I'm passionate about, seeing the union and seeing people be really happy and being free. So I guess I went through my own process. I was brought up in a Christian home with a Christian schooling and church every Sunday. And so I, of course, experienced that repression that we get from that paradigm that says that, you know, sensuality and sex, we don't really talk about it. You do it to have a baby and that's it. And I had to, when I say escaped, I managed to escape from that and look at my beliefs. I went, okay, well, do I believe that? No. Do I believe that what they taught me? Oh, that one's a good principle. I'll keep that. And threw out all of the bullshit. And then I thought, well, maybe I'd like to be a slut. Maybe I can be free enough to do that. And I'll just pause there because it's important that we redefine the word slut, because it is a very loaded word in our culture.
Yes, it is.
So quoting Dossie Easton from the book I mentioned, The Ethical Slut, this is the new definition of slut for 2023. It's really just a person of any gender who dares to live by the proposition that sex is natural and good for you. Full stop.
It has a different connotation altogether.
What do you think?
Completely different connotation of what
It's pretty different.
Very, very different indeed. Yes.
Yeah. So that opened my eyes, and if you can understand that, it's anyone who dares to just live radically, but also, I will say, you do have to be able to take responsibility for your actions. Like, that's an important piece.
Okay, definitely.
So
you can't just go around doing what you like without considering others. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's, I think, the element of the original slut definition is someone who doesn't care, who just is doing what they want for their own pleasure and not having an awareness. Whereas the ethical slut, you could say, they termed that, is someone who does have that awareness and makes good agreements and is open about how they're a free dancer at the moment, for example. Like, I'm a free dancer at the moment. That means that I'm not wanting to connect to make a deep connection or a deep relationship, and informing people of that. Then you can decide, well, do I want that or not?
And so you don't
there is this ethical element.
You don't subscribe to the concept of marriage. You more or less like on the fence on that. Or what do you? What's your opinion?
My opinion on marriage. I don't know if I can speak on that. I think it's an institution that was established more for domestic and financial comfort, and that it was not really designed for, I don't know, a romantic, exploration. So coming from that point of view, I think it's defunct. I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think it works anymore.
But what you can have, and what is more, and also my opinion, if you want to ask me, is because the agreement is not explicit. Because it's just following some paradigm of something that this is what you do and this is how it is, and you get together and you have kids and then you buy the house and then you have a sexless marriage. It's like it's a paradigm, right?
Yeah.
That I want to try and combat.
Then people get into
often. And ignorance.
Partnerships without knowing what the other person actually needs. Lack of communication. Is like a business thing. You don't sign a contract without even reading about it. With a marriage, you don't even read about it, or you don't even talk about it. So that's why marriage doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. So that is my issue with it. Yes. And what it shows us is that actually you can still have a union, you can still have a committed union, that you do it by an explicit agreement. So I help people work through that stuff. What does an explicit agreement mean? So you actually write stuff down. It sounds silly, but you write down what is your expectations and what is your boundaries. What do you love? What are you looking for? Do you want to be monogamous? Do you want to be non-monogamous? Do you want to, explore kinky stuff? Actually have that as part of a contract, and then sit down, agree, sign, cool, we have an agreement.
That's how you should.
And then I recommend you renew that agreement every year. So I'm more in the pagan side, shamanic side of town. I've been studying in a shamanic lineage for the last 6 years, which has really opened my eyes to a different way of interacting with the world. It's changed my attitude and my approach to everything.
Okay, Venus, I'd like to ask you a little bit more about Altspace. And now because the platform is actually going to be closing pretty soon, you bringing your community, your followers into this space now, which is all going to be very, very new. But I'd like to ask you, how long have you been doing what you do in VR?
Well, it's almost 2 years to the exact date. So it was March 2021 that my friend introduced me to Altspace, and very shortly after that I met Shushu, and he is the designer of the amazing worlds that I have in Altspace now. And the product of that meeting was actually a part of what created the whole Venus Empire. And so, as a bit of a joke, he has named it the Venus Empire of Love. And we have the followers to the Venus Empire of Love because that's what everybody wants. We want to live in love and harmony and have as much pleasure and connection as we can. So 2 years, pretty much. Altspace will shut down on March the 10th, and that is nearly 2 years to the date. And we're going to be partying right to the last minute when they switch off the server. So we see what happens. Like, what will happen? Will everything explode? Will we just kicked back? Will we just kicked back to Microsoft webpage?
And
it'll say
unavailable.
It'll say, "Fuck off, we don't care about you," from Microsoft. Kiss, kiss.
Oh, I'm sure like everybody who plays VRChat is going to make you as welcome as possible. I'm sure of that. This is also an amazing community. You'll find all kinds of people here.
Great.
But the majority are good. I would say everybody's good. You got the ones that are sometimes in a bad mood and they might not behave appropriately, but it's just deep down they're good. I always believe everybody's good deep down. They just need to find it sometimes. Anyway, one thing I wanted to ask you as well, what do you think this technology, VR, the headsets, the virtual worlds, in your opinion, and this is nothing to do with what you do, completely independent, what do you think where this technology is taking us as a our species?
Mm-hmm. In the development, the evolution of our species. I think there is a lot of potential for it to be a healthy space to have connections and learn and grow to be actually a better human. I think at this point in time, the technology, the actual hardware side of it is moving too slowly. So I think we're ready for it, but I can't explain why because I don't know enough about that. I'm not a tech person. I'm a lover, not a coder. I don't know why the hardware is so slow and so clunky, but that aspect is what stops a lot of people, I think, onboarding into this space and actually appreciating it. So I guess in the future, if the hardware becomes more accessible and easier to integrate, access, then we may see more of a community here. That being said, I think it's also super important to remember that this is a digital world and this is our digital selves. And we need to also remember that we have our physical selves, which need to see the sun and walk in the grass and talk to the trees and, lie under grandfather's sun and allow him to make love to you just by laying naked.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I am really about the balance. Well, it's important, LilyBit. I've seen my own tendency. This can be addictive, this stimulation that is so easy for me to have. It's really stimulating my ego. Yeah? I I can express myself in so many ways, and oh, how pretty do I look? And that's all great stuff. But also, we need to stay connected to ourselves and to nature, because otherwise there is no balance.
Yes.
So I think if we can combine the two, our digital world, and it will happen. There will probably be more intersection of our digital world and our physical world.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a very
I
good
look forward
point.
to seeing what that's going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think we don't want to be 100% in a digital world. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Like a lot of my friends here, they know me for saying that I want to move on to VRChat permanently into the digital world. I've said that in the past. It's always been as a joke. It has been a joke, but I do keep my real self very, very personal to my digital self. It would be nice to be able to eventually bring them together as I learn more, like you say, about deep down who I am. Be able to learn from Lily, so the person out there can be a little bit more confident.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point. So this avatar ability, it means it's almost like stepping into a different role. Some of the stuff I was talking about, how we can choose to step into a role, and in that role there are these different allowances, or maybe we allow ourselves to be more kinky, or we allow ourselves to be more honest, or we allow ourselves to just look at something that we haven't wanted to before, and then we can step back over here as the who I am, and then have learnt from being immersed in that body, basically. So this is my body here.
So in a way,
this is who I am.
In a way, it's a little bit like putting yourself in somebody else's shoes.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
And often we don't do that. Like, often it's easy to stay really self-centered and quite focused on ourselves, Yeah, the mirror is here so close to my face that I'm not even thinking, well, what is it like for you? What is your experience? And that is, I guess, emotional intelligence. And that's something that we're all learning is, can I have more intelligence to really connect with you, be responsible for what I say and do? But apart from that, I'm autonomous. I can do what I want if I am able to communicate effectively with you.
Yeah. So do you
And I want to see people having that freedom. That's why I do what I want to do. You ask me, why do I do what I do? I do what I do because I want to see that freedom being, spread out to more people.
Yeah, you people are aware of the freedom that you can have here. So do you believe that VR can move on to other aspects of a real world? What I mean by that, let me just rephrase it a little bit more. This is a game. VRChat is a game. Altspace was a game. But do you think that this technology can benefit other areas in our real world, like education, industry, even, I know that sometimes retail is a big part of our society, and I have started to see beginnings of that trickling down here, little samples of how you can actually, instead of sitting in a website looking at a screen doing shopping, you can actually put an avatar on and go into a virtual store. That excites me. That I think is quite a good concept. Do you
that sounds
think
fun.
that has a future? Do you think that there's a future on that?
I think that there is actually more happening in VR than we actually realize, or what is showed in the media. So I think for your viewers, what they see is the media and the bad press that VR is having at the moment. With Zuckerberg giving us the bad reputation, he's not helping at all. And I've heard that there are industries utilizing VR to train in areas that are high-risk situations, or, for example, in the medical industry. And this social aspect of VR is actually still quite small. It's still
Just
quite
the tip
in
of
its
the iceberg.
pioneering level. Yeah, so there are industries using it, but what I want to see is that, yes, I do believe that this is going to be more of a social space that I spend time in. I have my home, or I have my multiple homes or my spaces. You come and join me there, and you can be from anywhere in the world. I don't have to spend money on the flight or the 25 hours to get there and the lack of sleep and the hangover and the jet lag. I can just jump into a space quite immediately and join with you and be with you physically and share with you on a heart level, on a mind level, and a spirit level. And that's what I love about VR. You don't know what we're talking about until you're sort of here in the space, I think, and that's what's
exactly.
There's barrier of that at the moment. That the press is bad, and all that people think about is the negative things that can happen here. I think there is a true therapy element in VR, like therapeutic.
Oh, definitely, yes.
It allows for simulated experiences. It even allows for someone who maybe doesn't have any limbs to have an experience of having limbs again and making love with their whole body. That's right. One example.
Yeah, it's very, very true.
And that's being done.
Very good point.
We just need to open up. And maybe imagine that it's very normal for you once or twice in your week where you get home and you're like, okay, I'm going to a class tonight, just like you would drive to a class. But you hop into VR, you attend the class, you learn what you learn, and you say, hey, cool, that was great. See ya, I'm going to have dinner now. And it's a very easily accessed way of education, way of learning.
That class could be actually in the other side of the world. So you don't limit yourself to what's just available to you in your radius of residence. You could actually be interacting with people from all over the world. So we become even more interactive as species. Our societies get and intermingle even more. We understand each other more because we get to know each other. So we become stronger as a race, the human race.
Yes, we understand breaking cultural boundaries.
Yes, definitely.
I think is what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. And our language is often a barrier, but we need to get more translation. I'm sure that we can get more translation facilities in here. Language is a barrier, but what's beautiful is that I don't even need to speak, and you can still see my expression or feel me.
Exactly. That will be the time when you'll be able to put a little mod where whatever you say gets automatically translated, so the person that's listening to will listen to it in his own language. That can be done. The technology is already there. It's just a matter of implementing it, and I think it will happen.
Of course.
But we are getting too far ahead of ourselves. I think that's maybe a subject for another interview, because I do want you to tell me more about your ventures once they're all settled here, what you've been, running the events. Once you move in fully, you're settled in your new home, and you start running your events. I'd like to know more about how you call it,
Playroom. Playroom SX.
Playroom SX, everybody. I want to know more about that once it's up and running and see how it works in VRChat.
Yes, and definitely nothing to do at all with the Nintendo game. Nothing to do at all with that. This is the Playroom SX is actually the new digital erotic playground. And we could speak more about that, but just to give you a bit of a taste, it is sort of the club, the VIP club of VenusSX, where you can join a space that has the more interactive, sensual activities. So we have the age verification in place, and I also have a filtering system. So the members in the Playroom SX have access to the VIP spaces, to online content, and generally they'll also be offered tickets to the private events first.
Oh, cool. So
it's still being built, and it's still it's a VIP experience, and it means that it's a space where you can be more interactive than what we do in the free events.
I just want to make sure
I look forward to that. It's so exciting.
Understand? Maybe people understand. It's not to be an exclusive to kind of push people out. It's more, the way I understand it, the way you explained it, is more about keeping it in an environment where people that are like-minded get together in a safer environment. Like keep the children away so they're safe. They don't have to hear adult conversations they're not ready for. So that's what this Playroom is for, isn't it?
Yep, you got it.
Excellent.
And it's an interactive, immersive sort of party space as well. So there's different elements. We'll have social events which might have a theme, and you could dress up in whatever avatar you want to come along to that themed party. And then we will have some role play opportunities. So that's an opportunity for you to just jump into the hot seat and just play. It's going to be fun.
Sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to you telling us more about it the next time we talk, once it's been up and running here in VRChat for a little bit. Venus, it has been lovely talking with you. Thank you for your time, and I look forward for us catching up again in the near future. All the best in your future endeavors.